Dr. Klein is with us, and today we're going to talk about minerals. You really need them.
Okay, gotta love this. Well, the reason I wanted to discuss this, is because we have a lot of information in front of us. We have a lot of things that we confuse with research. Anybody with a computer and Google or Google Chrome, thinks that they're doing research. They'll go ahead, they'll have a problem, medical issue or that. You Google it. That is not the same thing as any type of research I've ever seen. It's very much like asking your hairdresser their opinion on something other than hair products. Well, not to insult the hairdressers of the world, stylists and so on and so forth, but what do minerals do and why do we care? The problem is something called chronic illness. And many of these chronic illnesses that we suffer from include diabetes, hypertension, depression, irritable bowel, psoriasis, other autoimmune disorders, cancer, and so on and so forth, can be traced back to such things as mineral deficiencies and deficiencies of other natures. But the minerals are where we're going to focus right now. Now, for argument's sake here, what is a mineral? How does this really look? How is this important to us in biological terms? And a mineral is an element. It's neither created nor destroyed. You cannot go out in your kitchen and make zinc. It isn't going to happen. You can't go out and dig around and then isolate an herb and give it, turn it into calcium. It either is or it isn't. Where does the body get the mineral from to begin with? And it's either going to be in the food or in the water supply. What do these minerals do? They're almost all metal cations. These are metal ions that are basically in the protein, in the carbohydrates, or in certain other salts in the water. But why do we really care? The most common of all these deficiencies that seems to cause us issues, oddly enough, is zinc. Not calcium, but zinc. Zinc deficiency and magnesium deficiency are responsible for about 40% of the autoimmune disorders that are out there right now and or the chronic illnesses that we're seeing. 30 to 40% of the population is deficient to magnesium, 30% to zinc. But what does this do? It makes it so that certain enzymes do not function. When the enzymes don't function, the body cannot produce certain proteins, in particular the immune system, and then things start to go sideways. So what minerals do we really concern ourselves with? Well, for argument's sake here, we're going to start with magnesium and zinc because they're the most common. Vanadium and chromium. These are two elements that people know in the automotive industry because they're used to make the shiny parts on your car. They also make the shiny baubles and bangles that you might be wearing, belt buckles and so on and so forth. But elemental zinc, elemental vanadium, elemental calcium, and so on and so forth are not biologically available. They will not do the job. But what do these things do? What these things do is they're called enzyme cofactors. They work very much the same thing that the vitamins do. You can have a protein, the protein backbone for hemoglobin. You can have the protein backbone for these enzymes. You can have the protein backbone for structural proteins, things that hold you together. But generally in the center of these proteins is a metal cation holding the whole thing together. And you may want to go back to your high school, junior high school, whatever, where they talked about hemoglobin. What is it that holds that protein together? And it's an iron atom. This iron atom is very, very important because without it, the hemoglobin falls apart and you become anemic. That's why iron is important to folks with certain types or many types of anemia. Calcium, very, very important because it's in bone matrix. Now, calcium is very, very common, very, very available in our food stuff. But why is it that we're demineralizing our bone? It may have something to do with yet another mineral called strontium. Strontium deficiency leads to osteoporosis, not calcium deficiency. Now, why do we really care about this? The answer is simple, because many of these illnesses are preventable. Long before you have the symptoms of these things is when you need to be focusing on it. So if you went to the doctor's office and they said, you don't have osteoporosis, congratulations. Okay, you don't have it yet. You're going to live long enough. You're going to get it unless you do certain things now. First and foremost is to replace those things that the body needs. Now, when you do a bone scan, you're being graded, but you're being graded relative to other people in your age group. Now, let's think that one through for just a second. Okay, so if your bone is thin for somebody relative to the age of 40, but it's okay because you're 70, That's marvelous, okay? That means that you're at increased risk for hip fracture, vertebral fracture, so on and so forth, in spite of the fact that your risk isn't as bad as somebody that's got it worse than you. So relative to another diseased person, you don't have it so bad. That does not sound like an A+ on a sports card. I mean, so you don't do this. The scorecard is not so. So when we're looking at these things, you want to get ahead of them. Zinc, selenium, vanadium, chromium. These are the most common of all the micronutrient deficiencies that have a tendency to cause chronic illness. We're going to take them one at a time. Where do you get these things from? For the most part, these minerals are found in animal proteins. Where else? Certain vegetable proteins. But what does it take to get them out of a vegetable? Very, very difficult, because your body doesn't have the capability of breaking down cellulose. Well, if you don't break down the cell wall, you can't get these available nutrients. Very, very interesting. So vegetarians have a very, very high prevalence of certain mineral and vitamin deficiencies, and it's not going to change. Okay, so true enough, you didn't eat Bambi. True enough, you didn't eat Elsie the cow, but you'd better find your way into getting these other nutrients on board, or you're going to get every bit as sick as you might think. Vanadium and chromium. Okay, well, people know about chromium because there's some issue with weight loss with it. Well, if you take a little bit of chromium, you'll lose some weight. Congratulations, you heard the part of the story that made you happy. What do vanadium and chromium do? They sensitize the cells to insulin. So if you're insulin resistant, you are already vanadium and chromium deficient. You're not taking it to lose weight. You're taking these things in order to fix the underlying issue, the underlying deficiency. So these are the sorts of things that you need to focus on and move on. Magnesium, extraordinarily common cause of illnesses. Over 300 different enzymatic reactions rely on magnesium just to happen. 300 different proteins, 300 different enzymes, lots of different symptoms, most common of which is muscle spasm. You get muscle spasm at night, it's got to be potassium. Nonsense. That was what I was taught when I was in medical school. Wouldn't you know it is not true, hasn't been true. Yet they're still out there promulgating the same nonsense. If you've got muscle spasms, we're going to go ahead and burn your veins out with potassium instead of fixing it properly with magnesium, which, by the way, never bothered anybody's veins. Very easily absorbed.
Now, a lot of the stuff, as you said, we used to get through our water. And how about the stuff we used to get from food that wasn't farmed, or from food that wasn't from farms that have been farmed out for years and years and years? There's no minerals in that soil anymore.
Brilliant question. Or in the groundwater that we have here in Florida, which goes through an aquifer of limestone and sandstone. It doesn't pick up the minerals that you pick up when you go to the Rocky Mountains, or even the Appalachians for that matter. You hit the states that are fed by the Mississippi, Missouri, and so on and so forth. They have all manners of minerals present when these rivers flood. Guess what? We started damming up these rivers. They don't flood anymore. So even the food from those states is now starting to come up deficient. So you need to get ahead of these things now. I take minerals on a daily basis. I have for many, many years. It makes me feel good, makes me feel young, and wouldn't you know it, the blood pressure, cholesterol, so on and so forth have not manifested, in spite of the fact that my friends and many people a lot younger than I am have these problems on a daily basis. So I use something called magic minerals. Why did I cobble this together? Because I did it for my daughter, oddly enough, when she was 7, 8 years old. It was easier to give her one product with 4 capsules than to give her 11 products with 11 small tablets. She wouldn't do it, so we called it Daddy's Magic Minerals. Had a little girl on it. It worked out very, very nicely. When she turned 18, I changed the name to make it more dignified. Now it's just Magic Minerals. So you got to love it. But you're doing this with some forethought. You don't do it just because I'm telling you that it's a good idea. You're doing it because your body needs certain things. Each of these minerals has a specific use. Now, what and how does a mineral is it used? Tertiary protein structure. You're not going to be tested on it, but they're not interchangeable. You cannot exchange a calcium for magnesium. In fact, some of these heavy metals poison these enzyme systems because they occupy the place where these minerals are supposed to sit. They bind more tightly. They're called antagonists, competitive antagonists, sometimes non-competitive antagonists, which is even worse. They glue up the system, thereby preventing. They call those poisons.
How do we find out what minerals we really need as an individual? Does everyone need to come and get a blood test that is specifically looking at everything in their body?
No. Okay, it's not that complicated, and yet it's not that simple. The mineral deficiencies are not easily detected by blood. Okay, it doesn't work that way. There is a functional test that you can run on this thing. It's a little bit on the pricey side. So as a general rule, the way I like to approach life and the way I like to approach medicine is that if it costs more to test for it than it does to treat it, I just go ahead and get preemptive with it. But what I will tell you is that if 40% of the population is magnesium deficient, 30% is zinc deficient, and it costs about 14 cents a day to treat it, what do you do? Do you spend $600 to $800 to detect it, or do you just treat it for the rest of their life for half that? And that's pretty much the way I like to approach it.
All right, stagesoflifevitamins.com. Check it out. Stagesoflifevitamins.com and suffernomore.com. Suffernomore.com, and here is more contact information.
Our phone number is 407-679-3337, and our website is stagesoflife.net. We're located in Longwood at 1917 Booth Circle. That's right off of I-4 and 434. And let's see, our office hours are Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5. The health store that Rob mentioned with all of our nutraceuticals is open during those office hours, but we're also on the web, as I said, at stagesoflife.net, and you can purchase your nutraceuticals at your leisure, and we will ship them to you.